Session in order. First item on the agenda is next Michigan proposal.
Well, thank you, Mayor and Commissioners. I'm not really going to talk much on this item because we have two gentlemen with us tonight. I think at least one of them is a gentleman. No, I like Rick too most of the time. That's my buddy, Rick. Yeah. Yes, they actually have both been working very hard and diligently on this next Michigan proposal, and the new commissioners may not be as familiar with it, but we did bring this to the commission in the past year, so those of you that have been sitting in commission are a little more familiar. I think it's a great opportunity for us, not only for the city of Muskegon, but for our region, that we're partnering together with Kent County and Muskegon County. We are finally at that point. Of course, anything when you have several entities participating takes a while to put together. So we are at that point, and they can both talk a little bit about the other jurisdictions that have already approved this. There's a few more to go. In fact, Rick needs to get out of here quickly because he's going to another municipality this evening for a similar meeting. So with that, whichever person, Ed or Rick.
Ed Garner, Muskegon area first, 380 West Western Avenue, City of Muskegon. Thank you, commissioners, for having us tonight to talk about the next Michigan Development Corporation. I gave everybody kind of a summary sheet. Did everybody receive one, a summary sheet in the, regarding this here? This is just kind of a little recap of how this act was enabled back in 2010, really the old Granholm administration right at the tail end, which allowed multiple units of governments kind of to combine together in an interlocal agreement, really to help foster real estate development efforts, in this case with properties that has two or more modes of transportation. Just as a way of summary, there's only going to be 5 of these created, and the other 4 have already received a formal designation, or at least got the nod from the state that they're going to be created. And so there's only one left, and guess who's trying to get that one? We're trying to get this one for West Michigan. What this will allow for us to do to take in specific pieces of property, so we don't think it's going to be a ton of properties involved in this that has 2 or more modes of transportation on them: rail, road, water, roads, rail and water, those type of things. For those type of businesses that need that, are logistics sensitive, and allow us to the option to be able to apply maybe certain incentives that's not available to other pieces of property throughout these communities. These whatever incentives that are looked upon, if it takes that, because it's not a one-fit-all type of scenario. It's really you're trying to tailor the deal to fit whatever development that's happening on those properties. But we want to point out, which is the only contention, is that none of this will happen. There's no incentives, or nothing happens in terms of this without your consent. So it could be really proposed by the next Michigan Development Corporation that we do it, but we wouldn't be able to enact any of that and apply any tax incentives or tax financing or rent zones or anything of that nature which would be allowed under this unless you have your local consent. And that was the biggest thing in the interlocal agreement that we made sure is in there. That's on page 7, I believe, at the top there, which basically states that we cannot do this without local consent. Basically, to create these, we at least needed the county from each community. So Kent County and Muskegon County has to be a part. Muskegon County has already voted for the interlocal agreement on this, and then we need at least one core community from each of the different counties as well. In our particular instance, it would be the city of Muskegon that we're looking at. Muskegon Township is possibly looking at coming in this as well because of their crop science properties, but it's not mandatory that they come in. In essence, for you guys, know it is. We need you to actually to help create this thing and set it up. No budget has been established at this time, because what will happen once it's formed and once the application is submitted to the state, basically each community gets a seat on what will then be the board for this group, and that then the board will determine what kind of budget they want to put together and what kind of fees that they want to apply to you want to take it in terms of marketing efforts and the like. So right now, there's no budget wants to get this enacted at this particular point. We just, at this point, really just trying to get it formed, legally formed, set up, get the board in place, and then move forward with that. Time is of the essence, though, because the state has kind of been holding off, I think, for our application. Governor's office is even inquiring about where we're at with the process on this. We're getting very close. We'd like to get this in this month as well. So we're headed over to the city of Wyoming right after this to talk to them about it as well. Rick, is there any other particular thing you wanted to say about this? We kind of talked about it before. I know some of the new commissioners didn't get a chance to hear all the first presentation, but in the snapshot, that's kind of what it's about. We only set this up for 5 years too. We said we want to try to get some great momentum out of this and not waste time and let this thing drag out 10, 15 years. So we set it for 5 years, and after that it would just automatically phase out unless it was extended at that particular time. So at if we feel that it's not working out at that particular time, it will just go away. In addition, if you don't feel it's working out anytime in between that, you do have the option of withdrawing from this Next Michigan Development Corporation as well. And so you do have the option to pull out. If not, this thing will phase out in 5 years if it's not extended. And then the only last caveat that you need to be aware of is that because the counties are involved in these, and if something gets enacted, they could be subject to lose some tax base too as well if something is applied. The caveat we put in for the county is that if a county pulls out, then basically that voids all the rest of the underlying communities within that county. So that means if Muskegon County decides we no longer want to be a part of this, then the city cannot on its own continue to be a part of it at that time. So with that, I'm going to just answer. We'll just stop kind of there and just kind of open it up for questions.
Vice Mayor?
Thank you. Ed or Rick, could you possibly identify the 4 designees that are going to be going forward? You mentioned there were...
The 4 that got the nod so far from the
Yes.
state. It's the, Rick, do you know them all? It's the Detroit Erotropolis group. Is it called Erotropolis? I don't know the formal names of it.
Commissioners Rick Chappell over the right place. Let me think. The I-69 corridor, and so it's Genesee and Lapeer County. Detroit, meaning Wayne County and Washtenaw County. Traverse City, which is the county, and I think 3 townships in the city. Is that 4?
No,
And then we're the 5th. Did I miss one? Okay. Then the 5th is Lansing, around, I forget, is it Clinton or Hingham County?
Thank you.
Yeah, but none of the other communities are in West Michigan. This would only be the only West Michigan collaborative that's in place. And that's why we're fiercely trying to get this for our side of the state. We're starting with the 2 counties, but there could be possibility of expanding that, our friends to South and Oliver County or other parts as time goes on. But it's just enough really just trying to get two county governments to hit these agreements. So we're starting here first and seeing where it goes.
Mr. Darrell? Thank you. I'll just be blunt. I'm not clear how this thing's going to be financed. Where's the money coming from?
Well, it could come from several sources. Once the budget is, right now we don't know what type of budget will be put in place. At a minimum, there would be some organizational costs, still some legal fees to set up the corporation, and some minimum administrative fees to keep the meetings going, take notes, and do all the filings and so forth. Over and beyond that, if you start wanting to do some grandiose like marketing efforts, like putting together special marketing packages and some other things like that, there may be some additional costs and so forth to do that. In my opinion, there's a couple of ways you can do it. We can seek and will be trying to seek money, possibly even from the state or from foundations and so forth to help cover the costs once the costs are in. Certainly the cities or municipalities themselves can come up at our own office if they so choose. Or I was suggesting that in some instances that the property owners, if we're going to have certain pieces of property, that the property owners themselves would be engaged to contribute to the fee to the district. Right now, we don't have a permanent budget, so we don't exactly know how much that fee is.
Just to add, at least my understanding, because that was actually one of the holdups as we tried to work through this, is the whole budget question. That's why we said not to even deal with it at first. I see for us, it would be great if we got grants and that type of thing, but we may be coming back to the city commission at some point for a contribution. But also, as was mentioned, with the possibility with the township, I'm sure they'll be looking at Bayer because they, as property owners, they're the ones that would get the benefit if there's a Renaissance zone or something put on that site to bring a new company. I'm sure that's what they're looking at in terms of contribution. So we could do the same thing. We don't know for sure yet which properties will be included, but when we choose those properties, we could go to those property owners and ask for all or part of our contribution, because again, they're the ones that will receive the benefit.
Well, I mean, the reason I ask quite clearly, we're going to be hard pressed to fund Muskegon area first this year, let alone anything over and above that. The state is providing zero in legislative revenue sharing. I mean, we don't know if we're going to qualify for the little tidbits they've got left or not. None of these other options are particularly palatable when you have a stressed tax base like most municipalities in the state of Michigan currently have. So, I mean, to me, that's an issue. I mean, we can sign off on this and everybody can be happy, but if there's no money to make it come alive, then I'm really kind of questioning if this is just an empty exercise or not.
Well, we're hoping it's not. It could be. There's always that we can't get funding from other sources and the cost is just too high. At that point, we can decide we don't want to be a part of it. But this is just an effort to get it off the ground. I think we will be able to get the funding, as I say, if we go to those particular property owners. I don't know that there's going to be a lot of cost, and the people sitting on that board, who will include the county and the representative from each of our jurisdictions, will be making those decisions. If you want it to be a large undertaking with massive marketing, that type of thing, or you just want, if our two associates here are willing to continue the administration, I'm sure they'd want something for that, but it wouldn't be as much as if you went out and hired somebody to actually run the whole thing. Those are questions that board is going to have to decide. So we will have somebody on that board.
Has there been any preliminary outreach to potential property owners or corporations that might be interested in participating to see if there's actual interest?
I would say from the city of Muskegon, we really haven't. I don't know if the township has made that.
I've reached out to, and I don't know the name at this point.
Yeah, you don't need to give me specifics,
Yeah.
but
But
has there been some preliminary outreach, and is there some positive interest being expressed?
Yeah, I can say yes to both of those questions.
And they understand that positive interest means they're willing to write a check.
The way I've explained it is that there's a good possibility that if they want their properties included in this, that they would have to probably contribute. Right now, we don't have a dollar figure, but I think they understand that. But there is interest, I can tell you that.
Commissioner, if I could say is that we've looked at this from the beginning as a private-public collaboration, and on the public side, this is a public corporation. This is not. There aren't any private owners that are on the board or will be on the board unless you choose to designate a private individual to represent your interest. And from a funding standpoint, I think at least as this staff together has worked, we've heard it over and over again, Commissioner, not just from you, but from every other elected official about the budget constraints. And that's why we have constantly looked at and suggested that the last place we're going to come back and ask for funding is going to be from the member communities, and especially from your general fund. I mean, I think we've heard the message loud and clear. I over and over again for months. And that doesn't deter us from setting out the legal mechanism simply because I think we've had enough encouragement as well from property owners as well as from the state and frankly from foundations that we believe that there's a reasonable expectation or a reasonable outcome that we'll be able to secure startup funding from non-city, non-county, non-township funding sources. Is that clear enough? I think it is.
You heard it from Rick. But your question, your point is valid. But yeah, the goal is you understand constraints. We need to find out the fiscal constraints. And that's why Rick and I were constantly asked about the budget. We said, well, we really want the city board to really determine that. And so that's why you don't see a budget right now. The goal is really before the state withdraws this or somebody gets ahead of it, we really want to get our app in here and at least get approval from the state. At this point, we don't think this is going to be a futile exercise. We're hoping to get some legs on this thing. We did set up for 5 years, like I said, to see where we can go, trying to keep pushing us to make something occur with this having to sit for years. So if nothing happened with it, it'll just fade out. But I would have had an option, I guess, as an economic developer for Muskegon County. I would have had an option to have more tools, or as many tools as I can, to help further developments here than less tools. And we're competing with these other communities. 4 of them are going to have them. We're trying to get one for our region here so we can have the same tools available as they have to attract projects to our region.
Just 2 quick things to echo what Ed said with the tools that we need, and we talked a little bit about this the last time. We don't have a lot of tools left anymore at the state level, and this will give us the ability, the Renaissance Zone, some of those things that really there's no other way we could get those except through this, and you will have the option to approve those yourself. If you don't want to, in certain cases, you can say no. The other, and I was just teasing Rick a little bit at the beginning, but I can do that because he used to be my boss. But we have a friendly relationship between our counties, and I do have to give Rick a lot of credit because up till now we have not been charged anything. I know Ed's worked a lot on this, but Rick, through the right place, they really have been the ones working with the attorney. I know there's been a lot of attorney time and costs spent on this up till now, as well as Rick's time and Ed's time. And we have not been charged anything to date, so we do appreciate what Rick's done up till now. I don't expect them to continue to do that as we move forward, but we do appreciate it.
Does this duplicate the objectives of, say, Muskegon Area First or other organizations that are already in existence?
No, this is actually increases those efforts. Basically, that's why when you probably see at the end of the day, there's going to be a limited number of properties in here. This is an enhancement over what's currently been done with these particular properties. And once again, it allows us to kind of go outside the normal economic development tools that we have now that we use to spur investment, to maybe use some tools that went away that we can now be able to use for these specific pieces of property. So I would say it's an enhancement to what you're already getting. Also at the state level, in the legislation it says that the MEDC is also supposed to push these properties a little bit more as properties that are ready to go. So that's why, if, for instance, you probably won't see like our wastewater property out there because it doesn't have rail out there, it doesn't have water out there. But certainly we got a lot of land out there. They're trying to do out outside the city. But you probably won't see it. These are properties that has kind of pretty much everything in place. But it allows us to use a few additional resources that we can push for developments on these sites. And I don't think it's going to be, at the end of the day, we haven't identified all the properties, but I think it's really going to be only a handful of properties that fall within this purview. The minimum conditions are 2 modes of transportation, at least 30 contiguous acres, and at least within 1 mile of a major roadway. So they have to fit those 3 criteria to meet the standards of what we said. So the properties that would be included in this.
Any other questions?
Great, thank you. That's for consideration.
Item number 2, Veterans Park improvements.
This is a item that's on your agenda to consider a grant request for, it's $973,000, of which 95% will be funded through a federal/state grant. The other $36,000 will come from the other 5%, the other $36,000 is proposed to come from the 3 municipalities that split the cost of the maintenance of that park currently, and that'd be the city of Muskegon, the city of Muskegon, and the county of Muskegon. And as Margaret said, we're Mr.
Thank you. You pretty well covered it. Now, in deference to your crowded agenda, we're going to be brief today.
Could you please give your name and the address?
I'm Dr. Dennis Kobler, longtime resident of Muskegon County. With me is Lupe Alviar and also Don Ailey. We're all veterans, we're all members of the community, and we're all Lions Club members. And what we started out with a very simple project, just kind of mushroomed. We have quite an overview of how we see the Veterans Park out there. And to truly make it live up to its name of Michigan's most beautiful mile, we need to do some improvements. And what's happened over the last few months is we've had an opportunity to partner up with a lot of different groups, and that's the way you get things done at the local level. And MDOT has been very instrumental in putting this package together. So as you heard him say, we're here primarily just to give you the overview. We have a deadline of the end of April to get this into the proper authorities, and we are including, as you saw, the need for the 3 municipalities to help us with a 1/3 split of that $36,000. We continue to raise money. We have a lot of other ideas for the future, but with MDOT, we've got a lot of the improvements that we had envisioned for the park, and when 95% of the expenditures come from outside the city, to me, to our group, it's a no-brainer. And that's what we're asking, is that you consider doing your 1/3, and then we'll open it up for any questions that you might have.
Any questions, Commissioners?
What is the 3 communities?
It's the city of Muskegon, Muskegon County, and North Muskegon.
Mr. Mayor,
Mike, to the new members, this has been almost 10 years ago now. There was some real complications regarding the ownership and control of the Veterans Memorial Park, and he's no longer on the commission, but Bill Larson really was one of the members instrumental in helping getting that clarified, and as a result, we have an agreement with the county of North Muskegon regarding the ownership of the park, the financial contributions toward its maintenance, and a governing structure to ensure that the maintenance is carried out. So, if I understood the material correctly, this has all gone through that body, am I correct?
Yeah, the maintenance agreement sets up a committee that reviews the maintenance activity for the park, but also discusses the capital improvements that are proposed. And that committee got together just a couple weeks ago and finalized this plan, if you will, to bring to the respective governing bodies for consideration.
And you represent the city on that body?
I do, but we have Mohammed attends those meetings, and usually somebody else from the DPW staff as well.
As past military members, we're very well aware of the chain of command. We've done nothing outside that chain of command, so everybody that needs to know, they know.
any other questions?
Thank you for your time.
So, Item number 3, civil service vote.
I put this on your agenda, I think more than anything to keep in front of you at the goal setting session in January or February, whenever it was. There was discussion about the personnel system for the city of Muskegon, and we had some discussion about civil service and city commission. It seemed to be that the consensus of the commission was that we wanted to consider the opportunity to place this issue back in front of the voters this year, to ask them to consider the elimination of the civil service system. If you want to do that this year, you need to make a decision relatively shortly. Ask Andy Helton, but I believe if you want to put it on the ballot in August, a ballot question has to be approved by May. And if it is in November, I believe it's August. And I would propose that if you want to move ahead with this issue, that you place on the November ballot.
Any discussion? If that's something you want to pursue, we'll prepare the resolution. I'll ask the city attorney to prepare the resolution for the next meeting.
I think it would be, we've been asked to participate in taking the checkbox off the applications. If I remember the last manager's update correctly. And something as simple as that, we don't even have any control over. It's got to go through the Civil Service Commission. And that's just one of the many examples of where this just creates extra encumbrance on having a smoothly running personnel system.
We're all aware of that. Thank you. Anything else?
No, that's
Is there any other business, commissioners? Is there anyone in the audience who would care to address the commission?
I have some additional. Go ahead.
Thank you. Yeah, name's Dan Mills, 1817 Mills Avenue, North Muskegon. Yeah, and thanks. What I like to do is I like to mention how important it is for citizens to have accurate information regarding issues that concern them. Citizens in a democracy have a responsibility, like anyone with power. Along with that comes responsibility. Every citizen in Muskegon has a civic responsibility to be informed and to think about issues and make decisions that act appropriately. And so that's why it's so important, and I'm sure that's why we have something called the Freedom of Information Act. Now, I remember hearing opinions that the Sappy property was clean and not to worry about it, and I wanted to know about documents, and I couldn't find any in the county building, and I heard that there were some here, and so after a lot of running around and over the hurdles, I filled out a Freedom of Information form, and then went home and waited, the prescribed 2 weeks, and then I got an estimate that just said it was going to cost me $300 to find out, to copy any documents that I might have. Now, there was no itemized list. There was no breakdown why $300. It's just $300, and that was just an estimate. And so I'm interested. I've asked questions before down here. I never get answers. Matter of fact, I don't know if I'm even, heard when I'm asking them. So I'll answer them myself. Who owns the copy machine? The answer is we do. It's our copy machine. Who owns the toner and the ink and the paper? The answer is we do, the citizens. We pay for it. Who pays the staff members? To you? No, we do. It's our staff. We pay them. And so we've already paid for all that stuff. Why are you going to charge me $300?
When you say we, you mean the residents of the city?
This is our city.
You mean the residents of the city of Muskegon?
That's right. Yeah. And so why $300 more on top of that? Unless it is just a roadblock. And I wonder, why the cost is $300, because it wasn't explained. And I want to know if that's fair. Does everybody get charged $300 when they ask for copies? Thank you.
The law states that the city can charge the actual cost that it does take to provide the items. That also includes staff time. In a case like this, it does take research to look for those documents. They're not just in one place. They can be in several places. It was asked for all the information. The information can be in boxes, in storage. It can take a considerable amount of time. I don't know the amount of time until I start the project, so I give it my best estimate that I can at the time before I do it. But the law states that we can charge actual cost to recoup that time that the staff and the cost of the copies and everything else that might go with it.
Is there anyone else that would care to address the commission? Need your name and address also.
I'm Alyssa Merton from the Muskegon Conservation District in 940 North Van Eyck Street. And we are working with the Beechwood Bluffton Neighborhood Association on doing a landscaping project in Lighthouse Park, which is owned by the city of Muskegon. So what we're looking for is support for this project. We're applying for grant funds to cover the cost of the project, and those grant funds would come through the coastal zone management program through the DEQ. And the project costs are going to be between $15,000 and $20,000, and we are looking for support from the city as it is the city's property. And I've been in conversation with a few members of staff from the city of Muskegon, and they are supportive of the project. And then we're also looking for a letter of support and commitment, and that letter is drafted on the back. And there is in-kind match commitment from the city that we're looking for that I've spoken with Mohammed about, and he's given me some basic numbers of what that would take for the in-kind match.
Can you describe the scope of the project?
Sure. Yep, it's a 1.1 acre parcel, and what we're looking to do right now, it's all turf grass, and it's maintained by the neighbors. This is what I understand, is that it's maintained by the neighbors who live around or adjacent to the park. And they would like to see it return to a natural state, so we would be doing seeding of warm season grasses and wildflowers that are native to Michigan, trying to return portions of the area back to the dune ecosystem, which is what it was before. And then we'd also be using it for an educational ground. So we'd have signage about Michigan native plants and about low maintenance landscaping and green infrastructure. There would be a rain garden on site, which would address stormwater issues from Nelson Street, which is on the map there. Right now, that stormwater goes into a storm drain. And so we would be rerouting that to be managed on site. So ultimately, it would be used as an educational site for the city and the neighborhoods surrounding that. There would be a walking path with benches going through the middle of the property, attaching the neighbor to the neighboring parks and the Channel Boardwalk.
Any questions? Thank you.
Thanks.
Is there anyone else that would care to address the commission? I think, I'm sorry, I forgot her name. I think she's looking for action by the commission. If you would be willing to take action to support the project and to provide in-kind services. Is that?
Yes, yep, and Alyssa, my name's at the bottom of the stuff there.
I'm sorry.
No, that's okay.
I wouldn't have any problem with that. My only concern is that this would create much more activity in a parcel that has residential on two sides of it. I'm just want to avoid blowback from the neighbors before we get into something that's intensive. When you talk about educational activities and those kinds of things, has there been consultation with the?
Do you want me to come back up there and address that?
If you have,
Sure.
I have an answer to that. That would certainly make life easier for us.
Sure. Yep, the 6 neighbors that you can see that directly border the park are the ones that actually came out and asked us to come out and meet with them. So we've already had contact with them, and they're already aware of the project. And they're also have made the commitment, those 6 neighbors there, to do any maintenance required on the site, as they do right now. It would be less maintenance than there is now. So we have the support of the Beechwood Bluffton Neighborhood Association and the 6 adjacent landowners. Beyond that, we haven't gone further because we're just applying for a grant at this time. So, and these were all ideas that they came up with, and then we kind of, massage them to meet our needs as well.
Well, I would be, I don't want to step on Commissioner Turnquist's toes, but I would be happy to authorize city staff to issue a letter of support as outlined.
Well, and maybe include the city in-kind services.
Okay, including the in-kind services with the dollar amounts as described.
Second. Moved by Commissioner Spataro, supported by Vice Mayor Gowan, to have the city staff proceed with a letter of support for this project at Lighthouse Park, including the dollars for the project. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Commissioner Spataro?
Yes?
Commissioner German?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Gallman?
Yes.
Commissioner Waringo?
Yes.
Commissioner Turnquist?
Yes.
Mayor Warmington?
Yes.
Commissioner Hood?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you.
I wasn't sure I was going to be able to speak today because the way I read your agenda, I needed to wait for tomorrow's meeting. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm Cynthia Price, 1357 West Summit, Muskegon 49441. And I'm here speaking on behalf of Muskegon Save Our Shoreline, which is a 38-year-old, very, very grassroots nonprofit. I just thought I might give a sneak preview of what I will be asking for tomorrow night. The small group that has been meeting concerning the Sappy Melching site is going to be asking for a moratorium on decisions, and obviously, that's completely up to you. We just think that we need more time to hash out some of the issues, and we're hoping that Mr. Melching might meet with some of us, and we want to look at the rezoning issues in keeping with the master plan, etc. But I will be making the case for that, hopefully, tomorrow night, much better.
Is there anyone else?
Hello, I'm Shanti Davey, 4380 Hackett Point Lane, Norton Shores. And I'd like to speak to a couple of things. One is the Freedom of Information Act. Last meeting here, I asked, I think the head of the water department, a simple question about the budget for fluoride in the area, and he said, well, I'll call you tomorrow. And he did call me the next day and said I had to fill out a Freedom of Information Act. And I think it's kind of ridiculous, it's something simple that could be answered, or, all he has to do is go look at a paper and call me up. And so I'm echoing Dan's concerns about the Freedom of Information Act being something that's meant to slow down anyone who doesn't do things your way. So anyway, on top of that, I would like to just say that I'm going to be talking tomorrow about cleaning up the Sappy site as well, and I really would like us all to work together. I know that Muskegon is very creative and can think outside the box. We've been very innovative in the past, and we shall be in the future. Have a good evening.
Is there anyone else who would care to address the commission?
Jeff,